When I moved in with Claire, she gave me one rule: never open the attic. Every night at 3 a.m. she slid a plate of raw meat under the door. I thought it was a joke, until the meat started disappearing, until I heard it chewing, until it spoke. When Ben and Claire moved into the old Victorian house her family left her, she gave him one rule: we never open the attic door ever. He had laughed at first, thinking she was being dramatic. Why, rats. She didn't laugh. She didn't even smile. Instead, she just said, no, it's just the way things are. That first night, Ben awoke to the sound of something shifting above them. It was slow, deliberate, like something heavy dragging itself across the attic floor. Claire wasn't asleep. She was listening. Then at exactly 3 a.m. she got out of bed. Ben watched as she left the room, walked down the hall, and stopped at the attic door. She carried a raw steak on a plate. She knelt down and slid it through the gap beneath the door. Ben stared. What the hell are you doing? Claire flinched, but she didn't answer. She just stood up, turned off the hallway light, and came back to bed. The next morning, the plate was empty. Not a single scrap of meat left. Ben laughed nervously, trying to make light of it. So, do we have a giant raccoon up there? Claire didn't answer. She just started breakfast like nothing had happened. But Ben couldn't ignore it. That night, he lay awake, listening. At 3 a.m. the floorboards creaked. Claire rose, took another raw steak, and repeated the ritual, sliding it beneath the attic door. Ben waited until she fell asleep. Then, with his heart pounding, he got up, crept to the attic door, and pressed his ear against the wood. For a few seconds, silence then. Wet chewing, slow sloppy, something swallowing too loudly. Then, something else. A voice. Soft, faint gurgling. More. Ben's stomach dropped. The next day, Ben insisted. I'm opening the attic. Claire's face went pale. Ben no. He ignored her. He grabbed a stepladder, reached for the latch. She slapped his hand away. If you love me, you won't do this. The way she said it, her voice wasn't angry. It was desperate. Begging. That night, the smell started. A rotting stench seeped down from the attic. Thick, wet, like raw meat left in the sun. Ben woke up gagging. Claire wasn't in bed. He found her in the kitchen, sobbing. She had a butcher's knife in one hand, and in the other she held her own wrist. She had cut off a chunk of her own flesh, and she was holding it on a plate. Ben screamed. Claire, what the hell? It's hungry, she sobbed. It wants more. And she started walking toward the attic. Ben snapped. He grabbed Claire by the shoulders and dragged her away from the attic. Then he grabbed a hammer. No more feeding it. With one hard swing, he broke the attic latch. The door creaked open, and something moved inside. The smell hit him first. A stench of wet, rot blood and something ancient. Then his eyes adjusted to the dark, and he saw it. A thing of twisted bones, stretched skin, and too many joints. Its face was raw and human but melted. Eyes too large, a mouth too wide, and it was starving. It opened its mouth and Claire screamed. That is when it spoke. It had her father's voice. I'm still here, baby girl. Keep feeding me. Claire collapsed, sobbing. I didn't want you to know. I didn't want you to see. She confessed everything. Her great-grandfather had been cursed. For generations, their family kept it alive in the attic. If we don't feed it, it gets out. Ben ran. He grabbed his keys and fled the house, ignoring Claire's screams behind him. He didn't stop driving until the house was miles away. And for a while he thought he was free. A year later, Ben had a new life. A new apartment. Far from Claire. But one night he woke up hungry. His stomach clenched with unbearable pain. Gnawing, twisting hunger. He stumbled to the kitchen, opened the fridge, and started eating. Raw meat, chicken, anything. He couldn't stop. And then he heard it. A soft, wet voice. Inside his apartment. More. And Ben turned. To see his closet door creaking open. To see long, skeletal fingers curling around the frame. To see that it had found him. The hunger was inside him now. And it would never stop.